This is Katy Gille, and this is my oral presentation. The title is Keys to Success for Students with ADHD. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is the most commonly diagnosed behavioral disorder among adolescents in the United States. According to a 2008 article in the Journal of Clinical Child-Adolescent Psychology, the incidence rates of ADHD place, on average, at least one ADHD student in every classroom in the United States. Within the first week of my student teaching experience, I quickly realized the reality of that statistic. I learned that 13 students in my 6 classes had ADHD. As 13 and 14-year-olds, these 8th grade students had a lot of energy to begin with, but I noticed that the students with ADHD had noticeably higher energy levels than their peers in addition to other unique struggles. One student in particular left a profound impression on my mind as he spoke with me about the difficulties he faces at school as a result of having ADHD. He explained that he gets extremely frustrated with himself because he knows what is expected of him, but he doesn't think of those expectations until after he has already violated them. For example, he frequently blurted out answers, and distractions came in all shapes and sizes for him. The door opening, another student sneezing, his pencil, markings on his desk, the clock, and the list goes on and on. These distractions prevented him from completing in-class work and from understanding important concepts, which ultimately led to a failing grade. This student's story is one of millions of stories of adolescents who face the difficulties of ADHD on a daily basis. The 2010 Adam Medical Encyclopedia defines ADHD as a disorder categorized by inattentiveness, overactivity, impulsivity, or a combination of both. In the classroom, these behaviors may be revealed as a student making careless mistakes on tests and assignments, frequent fidgeting or squirming, and talking excessively. Countless treatment options exist for those with ADHD, but in the school setting, a holistic approach must be taken to combat the difficulties adolescents face due to having ADHD. One key aspect to address in creating an effective holistic approach for helping students with ADHD is that the intervention needs to focus on the development of skills. Skill development helps a student overcome his or her challenges rather than simply accommodating for the student's struggles. The importance of skill development is explained in the Chinese proverb, "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." Interventions focused on skills training benefits the student for a lifetime. In consideration of the need to involve skills training, I believe that it is critical for school-based intervention programs to involve 3 main components in order to successfully aid students in overcoming the challenges of ADHD. First, focus must be placed on academic skills training. Second, it is essential that social skills training be provided to the student. Finally, it is crucial to establish and maintain frequent school-home collaboration. Programs focused on these 3 components will lead to the success of ADHD students. I will first explain why academic skills training is a key component of ADHD interventions. Academic achievement is typically measured by homework assignments, tests, projects, and papers that are graded based on the teacher's judgment. A study published in the Journal of Pediatric Psychology found that adolescents with ADHD are more likely to have lower grades, poor standardized test scores, and to not graduate high school compared to peers without ADHD. If improving academic achievement is the goal of an intervention, the intervention needs to focus on helping the ADHD student develop skills in the areas where academic achievement is measured. This includes areas such as studying, test-taking, note-taking, and organization skills. Interventions for academic skills training may even include teaching students to look for keywords and test questions that will help guide their answers, or could possibly involve creating an organized binder, or even teaching the student how to use headings and subheadings in a textbook to take focused notes. By aiding a student with ADHD in developing skills to counter the challenges they face academically, long-term benefits will result. The next component of effective interventions is social skills training. A student with ADHD may have extreme difficulty making and keeping friends. Adolescents with ADHD tend to interrupt others, talk excessively, overlook social cues, and lack conversation skills. Peers may become irritated with the student, shouting out answers, or view the student as immature, or bully the student because he or she is different. The efficacy of social skills training would therefore result from interventions that teach adolescents with ADHD social skills such as conversation, problem solving, and self-management skills. A study from the Journal of Attention Disorders focused specifically on evaluating the effectiveness of problem-solving and social skills interventions on ADHD students. After a 10-week intervention, the study found that over 70% of parental ratings indicated significant improvement in their child's social skills. In the informal setting of my own classroom, I taught my students with ADHD social skills and evaluated their improvement. Here is a visual aid that lists the conversation keepers and conversation killers that my students were taught. When tested over this communication information, 5 out of my 13 students with ADHD answered the questions correctly on the pre-assessment before they had been taught the conversation keepers and conversation killers. Comparatively, on the post-assessment, 11 out of my 13 students with ADHD answered these questions correctly. That's major improvement. Although this informal study does not account for a variety of factors, the overall effectiveness of social skills training among ADHD students is very high, seeing that it directly addresses areas that ADHD students struggle with. The final key component of effective ADHD interventions is school-home collaboration. According to a 2011 study by the U.S. Department of Labor, educators spend over 30 hours a week with students, and time spent at home is on average 98 hours a week. Thus, the joined force of educators and parents can have a major influence on adolescent success. Interventions being applied at school can be carried over to the home setting or vice versa. An example of a commonly used intervention aimed at establishing and maintaining school-home collaboration is a daily report card, or DRC. DRCs are effective because they involve ongoing feedback between teachers, students, and parents regarding classroom performance and behaviors. Parents can then provide home-based reinforcement based on the DRC. Large amounts of literature have found a positive correlation between parent involvement and overall student achievement among ADHD adolescents. Consistency between home and school environments enables an ADHD child to develop skills inside and outside of school. In conclusion, I recall the influential conversation I had with one of my students who felt extremely frustrated with himself regarding his battle with ADHD. After numerous contacts with his parents, daily report cards, social skills training, and a few heart-to-hearts, it pleases me to report that he is evidence of the effectiveness of the program described. These interventions are developed for real students who come to parents and educators for help, students who have obligations outside of school, and students who aspire to reach goals of their own. I urge you to consider the effectiveness of the programs I have described and to advocate for them within your own life. Not only will an academic and social skill-based intervention program committed to strong school-home connections be effective in helping adolescents with ADHD succeed, it will also meet the needs of students as individuals.